Okay, guys, it's that time of the year. I want you guys to go get a cup of coffee, a cup of tea, some hot cocoa, something comforting, because we are about to talk about the worst books of the year. Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brianna and this is For a Positive Book. I make book and lifestyle related content, so if that's something that you're interested in, make sure that you hit the subscribe button down below. That is correct. We're talking about the worst books of the year. And it's always a controversial video, but it's always one that's so much fun to do. And honestly, I didn't have a great reading year. Well, I mean, I did. I had a good reading year in terms of quantity. I had a lot of duds though. Now, granted, I read 178 books in 2022. That is more books than I have read by a lot. So there's obviously there's going to be duds. There's obviously going to be duds. So I'm going to be talking about books that are just bad. Some of them, however, are probably going to be on your favorites list. Definitely one or two of them. So what I don't want you to do is tell me in the comments why I'm wrong. I don't care. I'm really, really happy that that book worked for you. I'm really, really so happy. Books are designed to be consumed, right? They're designed to be enjoyed by people. And so it would really suck if no one on the planet liked a book. So I'm really glad that for you, these books worked. For me, they did not. So grab yourself a drink. Let's get started. Also, I felt like the Eeyore mug was just perfect for today. So just be happy like Eeyore following the bee. Okay? I am not going to be doing this by like least worst to most worst. We're going to do it in terms of genre. I think that's how we're going to do it this year. And the reason why is honestly, I couldn't tell you which one was the worst of these. So there's that. I'm going to do another video where I'm going to be talking about books that disappointed me in 2022. This is not that video. So all of these books were 1 or 2 stars. In my disappointing reads video, there might be books on there that were 3 stars, but I expected them to be 5 stars, so they were a disappointment. Let's start off with thrillers. I had 2 thrillers that were on my worst books of the year. Which is actually saying a lot because I didn't read that many thrillers. I read 8 thrillers, and 2 of them are in my worst books of the year. Love that for me. The first one, The House Across the Pond, by Riley Sager. Thank you, Cassidy from Covers with Cassidy, for that alternate title. It fits better. It is The House Across the Lake. The reason why we call it that is because for some reason, with just binoculars, this woman can see inside someone else's house across the lake. So how small is this lake? I have questions. I have logistical questions. This book I think worked for a lot of people because of the reason why it didn't work for me. I think that if you really liked Sarah Pinborough's endings, you would really like this ending. But for me, the ending came out of nowhere. I didn't have a lot to say in my Goodreads review of this book. It was just like, where do I start? But like this, for me personally, this was not the paranormal thriller that we were looking for. Not what we asked for, Riley. Not what we asked for. I do think it's weird that Riley Sager, who is a man, writes all female main characters. So there's that. Like every single one of his books is a female main character. I'm curious to see what he does next year, but it'll probably be another woman. There was a lot of problems, at least personally, that I had with the representation of alcoholism in this book. For me, it was like literally she was always drunk, which made her an unreliable narrator to begin with, which like we don't need that in 2022. We've had that. Like that is a dying trope. We don't need it. But the other problem with that is that you can't really just turn that off when it's convenient for you or when it's convenient for the plot. And around the 75% mark, when the character has to go and do the big things, all of a sudden she's not worried about not having a drink in her hand and not experiencing any symptoms of withdrawal. Which is just not realistic, right? It's just not realistic. And then the last thing was just that there were red herrings that then were not red herrings. They were the thing. And so it was kind of one of those things. It's like we threw the main plot, like we had the main plot, and then he was like, oh, but what if we actually remember that thing where we tried to throw people off track? What if we then did that thing? And that was actually the main thing. This book just honestly felt like Riley Sager was drunk and or high or on drugs or something when he was writing this, or he was playing like thriller bingo and just like throwing a dart at something and then writing it. I don't know. It just didn't work. It didn't work, but I know that a lot of people really loved this book. So happy for you. Happy for you. The second thriller on my list of worst books of the year is Hide by Kirsten White. This, I guess, is more of a horror than a thriller, so maybe that number is a little bit skewed. This was not an adult horror book or thriller, but yet I paid $28 for it. So, love that. Fortunately, I sold it on Pango. But it was not scary at all. Like, not one time did I worry about characters. And I don't know if that's because it just, like, we didn't have any tension to build. And so there wasn't, like, this, we weren't worried. Or it was that I didn't care about any of the characters to worry for them. Maybe that was it. I don't know. It just didn't make sense. There were so many characters in this. This book was a mess. This book was, like, 250 pages. And it needed to be a 400-page book. I think if it was a 400-page book, it actually might have been good. But because we tried to cram so many things into such a little space, it didn't work. It didn't work. Nothing worked about this book. And I do think that a lot more people didn't like this book than The House Across the Lake. So, like, hopefully we are on the same page here. But I do know that there are some people that loved this book. Okay, then we had a lit fic book or literary fiction in Vladimir by Julia May Jones. I don't know. There's the book. I don't own any of those books anymore. This was a hot mess. First off, I do understand I'm not a literary fiction girly. I'm just not. I don't want to be. I don't strive to be. 2023 is the year of getting rid of most of those books. I'm gonna be honest with you. I definitely had some low expectations going into this, but even then it was bad. This is one woman's stream of consciousness, and it's about this woman whose husband is a professor and is accused of non-consensual sexual relations with his students, something. I don't really know. It's a weird power dynamic. I wanted this to be like My Dark Vanessa. I wanted this book to have a little bit more of that, really the rawness, that even conversations of the courtroom and the the trial and things like that. It wasn't. It was just this one woman's whining. And I wanted it to end so bad. So bad. I didn't care. I did not care in the slightest. Is it because I am just not a literary fiction girly and I don't understand it, and maybe the book was too smart for me? Maybe, but I don't care. It's still a bad book for me. I don't have much to say about this book. I was expecting something very different from it, and I didn't get that. Then we have In the Quick by Kate Hope Day. And this is the one of two, where I fell victim to the cover. This cover is gorgeous. This cover is beautiful. That's the only good thing about this book. The only good thing about this. Let me just read you my Goodreads review. What is the point of this book? This is science fiction. It was about this girl who has to go to this science camp and then go into space for some reason that I don't remember. That means that the science should be interesting, but this book was so boring and mundane, and the science really wasn't accurate. Why is she in space? We don't know. What is she doing? We don't know. No, really, what was she doing in space? She doesn't know what she's doing. That makes her a safety risk. And it was true. There were so many times where she would do a spacewalk and she had no earthly idea of what she was doing. And why was she in space? So much time was spent on completely pointless things. The cafeteria at school. I don't care what she had for lunch. I do not. And this is another book that was really short. And so, why we were wasting page space on what she had for lunch at a cafeteria on Earth in a science fiction novel, I don't understand. If it was a 600-page, trying to be whatever, maybe. But in a book that was, I think, right at 200 pages, I don't get it. So many pointless things. Going to classes, making friends. Like, it didn't make sense. It was supposed to be this, like, Jane Eyre retelling in space, but I never got that. I never understood that. If the synopsis wouldn't have told me that it was a Jane Eyre retelling in space, I would have never guessed. I think the part that, like, made me the most mad was there was a scene about her brushing her teeth. And that just... because she was brushing her teeth in space and not in a cool way. Like, if you're going to have a scene about a girl brushing her teeth in space on a spaceship, she's probably doing it in a cool sciencey way, right? No, I don't even understand how they had running water on this spaceship. That's not scientifically accurate in the slightest. What? The book didn't make any sense. And I forgot about this part, but I just read it in my review. For the love of God, why are there no quotation marks? And I remember this. And I actually had to stop reading it physically and go to the audiobook because she tried to pull a Sally Rooney and not put quotation marks in the dialogue. And, like, you don't do that. Please don't do that, authors. Not that there should be any authors watching this video. Don't watch this video if you're an author. Sorry, that should have been an early disclaimer. Next up is a graphic novel. And I don't normally put graphic novels on these lists. I think I've probably had one in the past 5 years here on BookTube. And that is going to be Anya's Ghost. Don't remember the author. This is like a very old book. It was written, I want to say, at least 8 or 9 years ago, and it's definitely, like, it shows it's a product of its time. There's a lot of like girl on girl hate. There's a lot of, like, bullying. There's just there was, like, some fat phobic comments. Like, this girl that, like, was, like, saying, like, she felt very fat. She didn't, like, you know, she would look in a mirror and felt, you know, she had, like, a lot of body dysmorphia, which is fine. Like, we can put that in the story. I'm trying to say that thing shouldn't be in a story, but it was never combated. It was never argued. So we just went on thinking that we should agree with our main character in that she is fat, which, not the worst thing in the world. So, don't know where that came from. This book was just, no. Not a lot that I can talk about, but I'll link the monthly wrap-ups of the books that I, like, when I read them. Everything will be linked in the description if you want, like, my accurate thoughts on them. It's been several months that I've had these running lists, but this one just, it gave me the ick. This book gave me the ick. All right, let's move into romance, shall we? The rest of these books are romance. I read some duds this year. Oh my God. That is to be expected, right? 35% of my reads were romance this year, which is the largest slice of the pie by almost half. I read a lot of romance, like 62 of them, I think, which is, it's a lot. So, like, obviously there's going to be some duds. Also, a lot of the books that I read for videos were romances, and, like, because I'm not picking those books, they're not necessarily books that, like, I wanted to read. Although, if we're being 100% honest, only one of these books was for one of those romance videos. So, the other one, there's just ones that I picked out that I actually wanted to read. Love that for me. I should probably hone in on my romance tastes next year. The first one is Not the Witch You Wed by April Asher. I'm not going to talk about this one in great detail because this one is one that a lot of people really like. For this book specifically, I do recognize that it's probably 90% a me thing and 10% a book thing. The sex scenes were cringe. He called her princess every single opportunity that he was given, which is what I call my dog. So that's weird. She calls him Wolfman during sex, unironically. But even more unironically, this book is about a magic witch and a werewolf, for context. And then at some point in the book, she gets her magic and unironically calls it Sparky. And, this is a choice. It's not a good one, but it is a choice, and I respect your choice. A lot of the problem of this book stemmed from the toxic monogamy, and that's definitely a trope that's used in paranormal, like, werewolf shapeshifter type romances, because you're like a fated mate, right? And so, like, from the get-go, I knew that this book probably wasn't going to work for me. Like I wanted it to work for me and it just didn't. The biggest problems though, like honestly, they were just, they're me problems. Maybe you like it when the guy calls the girl princess. Maybe that works for you. Maybe this is a recommendation for you, but like, personally, I have friends that have given this book 5 stars and like so happy for you. It did not work for me. Next up is one that was just an atrocity. This one makes me mad. This one makes me mad. Queerly Beloved by Susie Drummond. Cover right there. This book takes place in like 2013 in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which is a very red state. And so gay marriage was actually not legalized. So there's a lot of conversations about like the political aspect of it. They're going to rallies, they're going to these protests and things like that. And then like at the end of the book is when gay marriage became legal, which I liked that part. That's the only part of that book I liked. That is the only reason this book got any stars. But this book is like synopsis is about this woman who gets fired from her like job because she's gay. Which did happen in Oklahoma at that time. It's definitely like, I did research it. I'm like, this is just a plot point that we just try to like fudge our dates and stuff. No, it actually was happening. That's Oklahoma for you. Anyway, this woman starts becoming like a bridesmaid for hire. And so that plot point became very redundant because she went to so many weddings. Like this woman could not say no to anything at all. At any point during the book, there was no growth. There was no character arc, nothing. She meets this other woman who is like the complete opposite of her, and yet somehow they work together, but they don't really. But like the author really wants you to think that they do. Really wants you to. There was also like really, really poor Indigenous representation. Like I said, this book takes place in Oklahoma, which means there is a large Indigenous population there. And somehow the only Indigenous person in this entire story is our main character's ex-girlfriend who sleeps around, who like is a whore, is like, it's very negative connotation. And then it's very explicitly pointed out multiple times that she's Indigenous. No one else is, and then we don't point that out to anyone else. So that gave me the ick. This book made me so mad because I paid full price money for this. And it was on the Pride table in my Barnes & Noble. And like, I wanted to like it. The cover drew me in. It's so queer. And it just didn't work. It did not work for me. I don't think it worked for anyone else either, honestly. However, and this is a little like plug to my Patreon, the top tier patrons are getting an exclusive video, actually 2 exclusive videos this month, where I'm going to be reacting to one star reviews of my favorite books and 5-star reviews of my worst books. So if you would like to become a Patreon, the link is down below. It's a great time to become a part of that because we are doing Scatagorathon later on this month. So sorry, just a little mid-video plug. Okay, the next romance I read during Summerween, I think. Oh boy. This is the last time I randomly pick up a book from Scribd. And I did. I was trying to pick up a book that like matched a prompt, and I didn't have a book physically and I didn't want to go buy it. So I was like, oh, I'll just find something on Scribd that's like short and I can read it in a weekend and it'll be great. There's Grooming of a Ghost. So this ghost is convinced that this woman is his soulmate or like the reincarnation of his love back on Earth. But he's a Civil War soldier, so do the math there. She's, in present day, which means that he was following her around since she was a little girl, which, ick, ew, gross. There's a weird magic system where, like, sometimes he would be able to touch her, like, as a physical being, but then if he used up too much of that magic, then he would fade away and couldn't, and it was never explained. We didn't know what was going on, so there's that. There was an absolutely unnecessary scene describing a sexual assault. Absolutely unnecessary. Like, we did not need that. It came out of the blue. It was so jarring. Sexual assault scenes are not something that I'm usually triggered by, but this was like, it put me so much on edge. The book was weirdly homophobic. At one point she is like trying to explain to her friends that she like met someone, but she can't tell anybody about it. And the friend goes, oh, is he a murderer? Is he gay? Like, those two are the same thing. Like, what? And then, for some reason, this woman thinks that the worst thing that could ever happen to her was if she had to masturbate and do things herself and use a dildo. Why? And I always wonder, like, does the author think this? I mean, she willingly put this in her book. She wrote the words on the paper, okay? And then put it out into the universe. There was honestly not one positive thing about this book. This book was just objectively so bad. I am definitely ending this video with the 2 most controversial books on here, hoping that if you're not already a dedicated subscriber of mine, you have already clicked off this video. If your feelings at all are hurt by this is your own fault at this point. And continue on at your own will. Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. This book I read so long ago that I don't necessarily remember most of it, but I do remember going into the second book with such hesitation, such caution. This book, it's fan fiction, is what it is. And unfortunately, it didn't get a lot of editing and refining between the fan fiction on, a website and an actual published book promoted by Book of the Month and several other things. It's very thinly veiled Raylo fan fiction. This woman's entire personality is that she drinks caramel frappuccinos or pumpkin spice frappuccinos or like whatever is pure sugar. And he only drinks black coffee. And that is all. Like that is these people's personalities. Also, he's very big and she's very small. But at the same time, the physics, even though this is a book about 2 people in science, physics does not exist in this book because, I mean, either that or she's just real small and he's real big. Because I think at one point he puts her entire boob in his mouth. And like, wow. As someone who works in STEM, this book made me mad. For a lot of reasons, because there were so many times where she was just so inappropriate with him. And like she sits on his lap during a symposium, during like a lecture that they're at. And that doesn't make any sense to me. Okay. For context, my husband and I both work in the same field. There will likely be times where we go to the same conferences together. Do you think I would do that? No one would take me seriously. It's hard enough for women to be in STEM to begin with. It's hard enough for women to get ahead and to, make men take us seriously. That's not helping. I hated her with every fiber of my being. I really didn't care if she had a happily ever after. I hated her so much. And then the last book that I'm going to talk about, not necessarily the worst book of the year. Like I said, we're just doing this by genre. But It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. This is the only book that I read for a list video or for like a Goodreads Choice Awards video. And this book was just a pure cash grab. This book was Colleen Hoover saying, oh, It Ends With Us is getting another boost on TikTok now that like that platform is popular. And I'm going to write a sequel so I can make some money. And it does. It feels like she wrote this book during NaNoWriMo. And then hit submit and it's sent to press. There was no editing. There was no questioning. There was no point to this book. It Ends With Us actually has a really powerful message. While I will never be a co-host Anne, I will never be like, I don't like her books. I don't like her as a person. She's very much against trigger warnings, which is weird because her books are like, they're probably the reason why most people need trigger warnings. Anyway, that's besides the point. I do like objectively, I can say that It Ends With Us has a really good message about growing and being on your own and trying and like getting out of domestic abuse, relationships, toxic relationships, things like that. But this book takes like 5 steps backwards because no, she doesn't actually, like, she can't stand on her own. She can't be on her own because she's got to have this other guy protect her, take care of her. It Ends With Us was kind of like this feminist manifesto of like trying to, like, you know, standing up for yourself and being your own person. And that whole message got lost with this book. Also, like, Ryle Atlas, I don't know, the good guy, the guy that's not her ex, is such a basic love interest. He does the bare minimum. And you know how we always say, like, the bar is on the floor for these men. This is the definition of that, because we treat him like he is this great person. If you watch Book Talk for more than 3 minutes, you are going to see these conversations about how he's the greatest love interest and he's a book boyfriend and blah 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 and he's so great for her. And like, have you read any good romance before? Because I can introduce you to so many good authors and like books you should read instead. All right, that is my rant. Those are the worst books that I read in 2022. Here is to 2023 and hoping that we have better books. That is all I have for you today. If you are new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little red button that you can do so down below the video. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads, and my Patreon are linked in the description below. Like I said, today you will be getting an exclusive video where I will be reacting to 5-star reviews of some of these books. Thank you for watching, and I will see you tomorrow with the best books of 2022.